headline-filled offseason so far in Ann Arbor, but with an early top 5 ranking in the 2024 class, well, things are starting to look up for them. Also, you know, the back-to-back Big Ten championships they can hang their hat on. Sam Webb of the Michigan Insider is here with us now. Sam, let's put you on the show. I want to see your face. Here you are. First, the big news out of Michigan here. Chris Partridge, he's back after a few years at Ole Miss. The all-star recruiter officially returning here. So how does he impact Michigan's efforts on the trail for 24 and beyond?
Yeah, he impacts them in a huge way. If you covered Chris Partridge back a few years ago, his first run at Michigan, his impact was immediate. First as the director of player personnel, then he comes in his very first cycle as a recruiter, back-to-back Recruiters of the Year award. First with Scout.com, and then when Scout came over to 24/7, he was Recruiter of the Year that year. A lot of the perception of him as a recruiter was built on his connections in Jersey, right? He was recruiting his stomping grounds. You know, he was Jabril Peppers' coach, and then he was Rashawn Gary's coach. And, of course, Rashawn Gary's going to follow him. He goes and gets Cesar Ruiz. But where he really kind of, I think, showed his recruiting prowess was when he went down to the state of Georgia and got 2 top 5 guys. And really, I want to say it was back-to-back cycles or close to it, getting a guy like Aubrey Solomon from South Georgia, beating Bama and all the other, you know, Southern powers for him, going down to the Atlanta area and getting Christopher Hinton, another top 5 defensive lineman in the country, beating Bama for him. He was so good on the recruiting trail that Nick Saban tried to come up and hire him back in 2018, only to get turned down. That's what Michigan gets back at a crucial time, kind of in their recruiting cycle in the NIL era. They're coming off back-to-back playoff appearances. You're supposed to have juice on the recruiting trail. You mentioned it. They're off to a top 5 start. But are you going to be able to close on some of these top 50 level recruits? I think that's in part a question about Jim Harbaugh's tenure and longevity in it. I think he's kind of answered some questions, turning down the Denver Broncos twice. He can sell that to recruits. But the NIL piece, that's going to be a bridge that they have to figure out how to cross. And this will be an interesting test case to see if they can still recruit at an elite level without doing what some of the other schools are doing in the NIL era to get prospects.
Sam, before we discuss the big picture, let's take a look at a couple big targets, and there's probably none bigger than Jaden Davis, the number 2 quarterback in the 2024 class. All the crystal balls right now, Sam, favor the Wolverines for Jaden Davis. What can you tell us about his recruitment and Michigan at the moment?
Yeah, I think Michigan is far and away Jaden's leader. I think that they were on the verge of getting his pledge in, say, late in the year into December, but that's when you get all of the upheaval or the talk about upheaval. Got Jim Harbaugh being mentioned in NFL circles, and understandably so. He was kind of entertaining that a little bit. You also have the quarterback coach, and I may have talked about this here before, but Michigan's quarterback coach, Matt Weiss, who ironically had been told by Jaden's dad that he was a terrible recruiter, that he didn't have, you got to learn how to recruit guys. He's a pro guy, so cut him some slack. He's a guy coming from the Ravens trying to recruit high school kids. And Jaden's dad, Jeremiah, was telling him, hey, man, this is, you got to kind of connect with the kids on a different level. He took coaching and actually got really, really close. So in a weird sort of way, being a terrible recruiter kind of helped him build a relationship with Jaden. But then he gets fired, right? So Harbaugh is in the mix for NFL jobs. The coach that you're closest to and Matt Weiss gets fired. You got to calm all that down. I think Jim Harbaugh did a good job of connecting with the family, letting them know he's going to be here for the duration, turn the Broncos down without having his extension done with Michigan. I think that sends a message. And then you hire a quarterback coach that I think is really, really popular both in coaching and player circles in the program, and Kirk Campbell. They're really, really tight with the McCarthy family. JJ's family has really vouched for Kirk Campbell a lot. I think that's helped kind of get that relationship off to a good start. Now you get to closing time, making him feel comfortable with what you're going to be offensively. Are you going to throw it a little more? I think that's a big deal. And then the other piece, I think it's going to be a factor, guys, with all these prospects. What does NIL look like? Not necessarily making promises. If you aren't going to make the promises that other schools make, you certainly got to be able to lay down some firm projections. I think JJ will help with that as well. I don't know how much longer it'll go, but I just don't think that this will be something that Jaden and his family drag out, over a long time.
And this is already such an interesting recruitment. Interested to see what happens next. All right, another top target here. Aaron Childs, the 4-star linebacker, visited back in January, but where do things currently stand with the Wolverines?
Yeah, so this is a big one. This is a big one for Michigan. It's a big one for Chris Partridge. You got to know the dude to know how he gets down. He comes right in the door, and he hits the ground running, recruiting. So I'm already hearing like he's going after Sammy Brown, the #1 linebacker in the country. He's going after KJ Bolden, #1 safety prospect in the country, right? They may be getting some help on that. If they are able to get Mantrez Walker, the 25 linebacker, this weekend, maybe that helps with KJ Bolden, right? They're going hard after Florida commit Miles Graham, and another top 5 linebacker. But the guy that as him coming in the door, they're already in pretty good shape with, is Aaron Childs. Michigan got on Aaron Childs back last spring, just came back up, or he just came up for the first time for a junior day visit in January, and was blown away by the experience. Now, he got close to George Hilo, and, we'll see what happens with George. But the fortunate thing for Michigan is he already had a relationship with Aaron Childs going back to Ole Miss. So he was on the phone with Aaron Childs yesterday. Aaron Childs going to be coming up for another visit here real soon. And when you can get those out-of-region guys on your campus twice, and in this case, twice in a very short span of time, that's momentum building. You got some advocates. Chris Jenkins is from the program, from Good Counsel. His track coach is one that Michigan has a great relationship with already. So they're off to a really, really good start with Aaron Childs. He's one of the guys that I think in this cycle, uncommitted guys anyway, that they're really trending up with.
Yeah, Aaron Childs, Jaden Davis, certainly top of the board material for a program that's trying to parlay those 2 back-to-back college football playoff appearances with a strong 2024 cycle. And looking ahead, Sam, obviously linebacker, quarterback, 2 positions, premium need for the Wolverines. Where else do you see this staff prioritizing from a positional standpoint in this 2024 cycle?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, man. Quarterback for sure. They got to hit on quarterback in this class. Got to. No question about it. After you get in linebacker, you're going to be losing some guys to the pros. So you kind of got to look at it from that perspective, anticipating losing maybe a Junior Colson. They're able to fortify the ranks a little bit, going to get Ernest Hausman to transfer from over in Nebraska. But I look at running back, because you're going to lose Blake Corum. You're going to lose, probably going to lose Donovan Edwards. And if you're Michigan, you have got to be in the 4- and 5-star. You got to be living that life as a running back school, right? You got to be getting 5 stars left and right, because those guys are going to be high usage, high volume guys, in this program. So Jordan Marshall out of Ohio is a guy that they've done a really, really good job with early here in the cycle. He's been up. I think Michigan is one of his top 4 or 5 schools at the moment. And then here recently, they just had Taylor Tatum up on campus as well out of Texas. So they're swinging for the fences in that regard. Another place that you really got to look, after running back, think about it, guys, receiver. I'm pointing to receiver because I heard that Amarion Walker, who's a freak of a talent for Michigan, right? I'm hearing he's going to play corner. And that's one of the guys that I was looking at to be one of the breakout stars for Michigan in the foreseeable future. So you're going to lose Cornelius Johnson after this year. You're going to lose Roman Wilson after this year. You do have some talent in the hopper, but you probably are going to take maybe the #1 talent at that position and slide him over to the defensive side of the ball. And he's a lot like you. You guys will appreciate this. My man that was drafted by the Seahawks, the rookie All-Pro out of UTSA. I'll remember his name anyway. He ran a 4.26 40 at the combine. He was a 5th-round pick. Now he's a rookie All-Pro for the Seattle Seahawks. He was 6'4", doing that, a 7-1 3-cone drill. We just heard that at 6'4", about 180 pounds, Amarion Walker just did the same thing for Michigan. So you're taking that guy, moving him to corner. That creates a need at the receiver position. So I'm thinking receiver is going to be a heavy, heavy emphasis in this class, going to get some more playmakers at that spot.
All right. Great intel there. Meanwhile, back in the 23 cycle, Michigan finished outside the top 15 Of course, missed out on Nicholas Harbor, but this is actually Harbaugh's worst recruiting ranking in the last 5 cycles. It doesn't seem to matter, though. They're getting it done on the field, but how important is it for the Wolverines to get back to that kind of top 10 status where they've been before?
It's Tariq Woolen is, by the way, the guy that I'm talking about, Tariq Woolen. So if you don't know Tariq Woolen, go watch some film. He lit up the combine last year. Amarion Walker is physically the spitting image of him at like 6'4", 180, really super fluid and athletic at that size. And you put that at corner, you can have a lights out player like the Seahawks have right now. But it's an interesting question because, look, there have been cycles where Michigan finished outside the top 20. The year that they got Aiden Hutchinson, I believe that was 18. They were number 22 in the rankings. Now, you're going to have those small number classes where that kind of happens. I think that he was a little undervalued by the rankings guys. He went to the Army All-American game, had 2 sacks, kind of showed that Greg Madison was right when he said this was going to be a game changer. Aiden Hutchinson wound up being that. But in this cycle, you mentioned Nicholas Harbor. I could throw in Jason Moore. I could throw in Jeremiah Love. I could throw in Dante Moore, Nicholas Harbor, who you just mentioned. All of the top 50 guys that they were on, they missed on. Now, that's not to say that they didn't have a good class and high upside class. I think they really did. Some guys, for instance, I think Jair Hill is going to wind up being a guy who performs at that top 50 level. They did a great job in the portal. But I think you got to look at it and ask yourself, if you're them, attacking NIL the way that we attack it, can we get those top 10 classes consistently, or are we going to be more in the 11 to 25 range? So far, it's looking like they might be able to do it like they want to do it and still finish in the top 10. Still too early to say, but that's something that you really have to look at. If they finish another cycle outside the top 10, coming off another playoff appearance, then you would have to really start to question, hey, do we have to adjust our expectations recruiting-wise if we aren't going to get down NIL-wise like some of these other schools are getting down?
Yeah, especially when you see rivals like Ohio State and what Penn State's doing as well. You kind of look around and we'll see what happens there. Sam, we actually have
helps with that.
What?
I said Chris Partridge will help. He getting another ace recruiter
will
help with that, though. So we'll see.
He certainly will. We actually have been asking our viewers to send in some viewer questions, and I will remind you that the only way you can do that is if you are subscribed to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. And we have a question for you. We didn't tell them to send them for you, but Sam, are you cool with answering a question from a viewer?
Let's go. Let's do
it.
Get it.
All right. This one is from Brian Hall saying, what are Michigan's chances with the top edge prospect Dylan Stewart from D.C.?
Michigan is very, very good in the DMV. I think that you're adding another guy with connections in the DMV and Chris Partridge. I guess I forgot to mention that when you talk about Aaron Childs, he's really, really good over at Good Counsel. Mm-hmm. So between the number of DMV talents that they brought in over the years and how entrenched they are, Blake Corum, Nakai Hill Green, I mean, you go down the line, all the guys that they've gone down to that area and gotten, they have really established themselves as a recruiting presence in that region. I'm going to say with every top guy that they're on, I've gotten to the point now where I question how big a factor is NIL going to be. A lot of guys say it's not, but it's not a factor until it is. It wasn't a factor for the entirety of Nicholas Harbor's recruitment. He gets a marketing team in December. They start looking at NIL deals in January. Suddenly, Oregon is a big time factor. I remember going to sit down with Nicholas Harbor, and during the interview, he was like, man, I there's no way I could ever go to Oregon. This was before Oregon was like prominent on the list. I said, well, he said, what's in Oregon but nature? I said, well, they have Nike. He said, that's all they have. That's not even in Eugene. What changed about Oregon in the span of 6 months? I mean, Nike didn't move to Eugene all of a sudden, right? They still had the same track program. They still had the same football program. What changed? Big time NIL. So my point is, with every single guy, I'm going to wonder until it gets to be closing time, how big a factor is that going to be? And can Michigan's projections over promises approach, is that going to be enough to seal the deal with the top prospects? They can outside the top 100, sure. But inside the top 100, this is going to be a test case that we have to wait and see how their approach is really going to fare in this cycle. If they can buck last year's trend, then I'll start to believe that it's not as big a deal as it seemed to be last year.
Nature and Nike. That should be the new slogan for Oregon. I love it. Sam, you're the best. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right, be sure to head to the Michigan Insider for all things Wolverines.